I want to, before we hop in, thank our sponsor, FutureWay. They're our Galaxy sponsor, and they are so dedicated to burgeoning communities like this, knowing that collaboration is really what gets us to the next stage, to mass adoption, what we're trying to do here today. So I'd love to just go around. We'll start with Dulce, and please introduce yourselves. Tell us what you're working on, and shamelessly promote links and all those things like that. We're happy, but we want to show everybody that we're all badasses here.
Okay. Hi, guys. Hi, John. Hi, Karen. Hi, Samantha.
Hello.
I just want to say that I love Samantha, and I won a hackathon with Samantha a couple of years ago, the AT&T hackathon. That was so awesome. That was actually the last time that we hung out and saw each other. So this is like awesome to be on a panel with you right now.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks. So I am working on decentralizing the metaverse with a company called Emmerspace, and that's IMMERS.space. And it is a love work project, cooperative love work project between me and 2 other developers. We won the grant for the web monetization grant. We started off with a chess game, and now we're branching it out into more dynamic and fun experiential kind of spaces. It's built off of the Mozilla Hubs, vanilla Mozilla Hubs, but we've added a bunch of different features like friends list and inbox and inventory and special monetization features with avatars and ticketing and things like that. So if you don't want to be in the funnel of Facebook and their metaverse, and you want to have your own domain, come check us out. And we offer solutions in the 3D environment. Yep.
So cool. I love that. I just like the idea of being able to spin up your own everything, and it's all yours. So I love that you're enabling people that way.
Yeah.
Kiram, you're always doing everything, and you live in like 5 countries at once and run conferences all over the world. So what the heck are you up to these days?
Well, I'll keep it short. So we just finished the VRTO online conference in June, which was our second one, using, like Dulce, a white label version of Hubs Cloud that we extended in various ways. We accelerated how to phase between zones and had time of day, weather, and so on and so forth. Dulce, you didn't mention the awesome inventory system, I don't think, that you have, which is epic.
I glossed over it, but
we have to get into that.
Collect objects in our space, yeah.
And there's like interoperability where you can take stuff from one Hubs deployment to another, which I think is deep. And the VRTO is called the Flotilla because that was also a reference from Snow Crash, which is at the end of the book. But it has to do with tethering ships from all over together and being able to experience everybody's different ship from sort of a hub. And so we had galleries that would lead out to Decentraland or Second Life or to Crypto Voxels. Melody Owen, who's doing a PhD on some of this stuff in Australia, helped to build some of those spaces. And we did an entire summit on the maligned NFT ecosystem, which I was very proud to host. We fostered a conversation about eco NFTs and women of crypto art. And it was really fascinating to see how a artist-driven community using Hicketnunk could really create intense growth without any outside assistance, and what that means and why that's so important. And now we're working on our 9th 5 Hours Festival, which started in 2015. This is the first time since our beginning that we'll be doing it in Los Angeles and Beverly Hills. Actually, we've always been in Toronto, opposite the Toronto International Film Festival. And it's going to be a hybrid event. So we have a custom build that we're building on top of Janus XR, which is maintained by James Baikayanu. And we've added a lot of custom features. We have AWS powering stereoscopic 4K video in the browser and all sorts of other shenanigans. And so that's basically in a nutshell what we're doing. And I completely am with you on this, Dulce, that we're here to keep the web open and free and decentralized and non-monolithic. Over to you, John.
Amen. I love this idea of the flotilla, We were actually playing around with that when we were searching for a name for Nowhere. We were like Tilla, Flotilla. We just love the concept of like, a more galaxy of interconnection and interoperability.
J Dilla. There's like the
Yeah.
possibilities are endless.
Yeah, he's going to premiere the platform. My name is John Morris. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Samantha, Dulce. It's a pleasure to meet you here in this forum, and Karim as well, after people have tried to connect us. I'm the CEO of Nowhere. It is a pandemic-born platform. After a lifetime being an artist, clown at Cirque du Soleil, a performer in Forza Bruta, traveling the world, creating theater, and then starting my own company to create sublime experiences to bring that work outside the walls of theater and into unexpected places. Some of our work span from recreating the night sky on the Hudson River to choreographing 9 Inch Nails festival tours to designing full tours for Metric, Fantagram, and big spectacles for AWS or Google I/O. And really at the core of all that work is really humans, and really the human experience of trying to connect people in deeper and more exciting ways. And through spectacle and through art experiences, allow them to deepen their wonder in the world and wonder in each other. And so at the beginning of the pandemic, all of our work was shut down, like so many live artists. And we really just started looking at how we could bring our work to the web. And what we realized was the void between what we would naturally have as humans at our core and the play and adventure of what artists want on the web, which is game engines and games. And so we said, well, what if we try to bring video and the human connection, what we have the closest to human connection, in my opinion right now, which is video, and bring that into the web in 3D. And Nowhere is a 3D platform that instead of an avatar where you're wearing a persona, it puts the video in the forefront and you as a person driving around this little video pod with spatial audio, so that you can have all the wonders of VR and AR and have a multiplicity of conversations, multiplicity of activities within beautiful, inspiring environments built by artists and experienced designers, so that they feel good, so that they inspire different types of behaviors. So we're a small team. We're a lean, mean startup machine. About 9 people working primarily out of New York, but we're fully remote around the world, and we're just trying to bring better presence to the internet in a way that it's all URL based, WebXR. So you drop in with a link, and then you're right there in beautiful environments with other humans.
I love that. Yeah, I was just in your, I just went for a tour last week with you, and I'm really excited you're here because, especially for this panel, because you are a noob, right? You just started,
Totally.
like you said, and you're pandemic born, which is like one of my topics I wanted to cover today. Is there was these behaviors that are in the market that changed, but then there's also people like you who are extremely experienced, like you've produced these like AAA experiences that got sort of challenged to continue your business from home and actually did so to the point where you were like, oh, this is so cool, I'm going to focus completely on this, right? Like this is the thing now. And so seeing somebody with your expertise catapult themselves into the web in such a meaningful way, to me was this signal that, okay, this isn't like, that big of a stretch for some of these really top-notch agencies and companies that are putting on these experiences. And it's just a matter of, especially with all of the work that's been done in the community for a long time with documentation and tool sets and open source stuff, but that somebody like you and your team could come in, pick up the tools relatively quickly. I mean, your platform looks like it's been together for a few years and like bug tested like nobody's business. And that's something
glad
to say that all of this could come together that quickly for you. So with that kind of pandemic tone in mind, what behaviors were you like? Was there a specific sort of customer driver that said, "Hey, can you make this experience virtual?" And were there other sort of people, like I'll open it up after you answer that, John, just to Kiram and Dulce on what you see as some major pandemic drivers in this space that WebXR is directly affected by?
Our project really inspired and spawned by our work with Civic Signals and Eli Pariser, who wrote The Filter Bubble. That was the last windmill factory project, was helping launch this new nonprofit to create healthier digital spaces online. So Eli is working on a wonderful project with New Public now, and it really is analyzing how we can learn from creating public healthy spaces throughout time with city planners and architects who've been doing this in real life, and merging that learning and that behavior with digital. So we spent about 5 months researching that right before the pandemic, and then it was supposed to be in May 2020. That obviously got postponed indefinitely, and then they challenged us with, hey, can you create what you've done in 3 different locations in the Bay Area, 250 people, and create that kind of dynamism online. And we kind of laughed. We then started looking at different platforms to try to do that, and really gravitated towards WebXR. It was cool to see Verbella on here. That was a really eye-opening experience, was being in Verbella and hearing the spatial audio and integration for us. And then we just started, building a demo of what we think would be good, and also just wanting to create the bar online for our friends and artists to hang out and be able to socialize. Those were our 2 drivers to right at the beginning of the pandemic.
It's always great to have a product that you're building for yourself. You're like, I want to go have drinks with my friends.
Yeah, where are my friends?
That's a perfect reason to start a business.
Yeah.
Dulce, I'm wondering what you saw, because we were having an interesting conversation sort of about like these different styles of people's idea of the metaverse, one being lifestyle driven, another one being sort of game driven. But specifically around lifestyle driven metaverse products, or someone like Apple, who's very human focused, what kind of behavior changes do you see happening from the pandemic that are going to have a huge impact in this space?
Well, definitely the idea of connecting at a distance and what that means to connect at a distance, and how deep can that connection be. And I've come to realize that Apple has been really trying to perfect what that means for like their iCloud users, who are usually families, right? So like a mom and a dad, they'll have an account, and then they'll have a bunch of kids, and the kids will have be a family underneath, and they're sharing pictures and they're sharing contacts and music and all. And what does all of that mean in the ecosystem of their devices? And how does that immerse people deeper into memories or events, or just any kind of daily engagement, like, being able to gamify your daily life and challenge your family members accordingly, through just living, right? And Apple is really taking the time to make that level of immersion a reality for everybody. And that includes scanning objects and turning them into 3D and sharing that with your family. That includes taking 3D photographs and putting those in spaces that give it holographic feel and look, because they're going to be releasing glasses soon. So those pictures would be perfect for some sort of 3D holographic display in some way. That includes face filters in the FaceTime and in Messenger. And so their whole play is like, we're not going to totally throw you into the computer. We're going to make the computer a tool that enhances your life and your lifestyle and the way you live your life. Where Facebook is like, we're going to throw you deep into the metaverse, and you're going to work in the metaverse. You're going to hang out in the metaverse. You're going to play in the metaverse. You're going to do everything in our metaverse. And it's going to be this walled garden that we're going to control. And that scares me like to no end. I mean, as soon as Facebook announced that they were making a 3D workspace world, I hairs on the back of my head stood up, because I don't want to be discussing my business on Facebook's workstation work environment. Like, if I'm going to have a business meeting with my company, I might as well do it on my platform with my URL in my space, and saying my space, I just remember that freaking website did more for teaching people how to have agency over their pages and their domains. And Facebook stepped in and said, no, we're going to homogenize the whole thing. We're going to make it plain, and nobody, we're going to make it easy for people who don't understand. And instead of teaching and encouraging. So, and I see that energy still happening at Facebook. It's like, yeah, you have groups that allow you to learn, and you get to learn how to build in Horizons. You get to learn how to build in Spark AR. But all those groups are users who are teaching other users. It's not Facebook teaching these users. It's other users teaching users. And Facebook reaps the rewards off of that. So if I'm going to be user, I want to teach other users how to make their own spaces that are comparable to Facebook, that can live off of legacy data that they've already got pulled for over the last 30 something years of being .coms, and tie it to a real space, their real business, and have some incentive for people to come out to the real space to engage in things that they can't online, and vice versa, go into the online space so they can engage in things that they can't in the real space. And I think that's really powerful and really important. And I believe the pandemic has definitely woken people's minds up to that idea, and just realizing that we're sitting on legacy stuff that we don't have to throw away, and we don't have to funnel it through another company in order to, engage with our stuff. We could do it.
No, it's such a great perspective you bring in. It's like, I think people, sometimes we get so caught up with what's happening on our screens, and then even what's happening with the immersion of our screens, we forget that there's this whole lifestyle and way of being around us, and all these sort of products that are a part of our connection. It's not just about one spec or one protocol. It's really about how we act and how we feel about all these things in between. I know for me, like, I can't tell you how many times I've been late for a meeting. That's just because I was like, didn't have the right tab open, and there's just no context for me and whatnot. So it's going to take us a while to kind of break apart the pieces that and then show those to the right people with the right meaning at the right time, and to make sure that we're supporting ecosystems where we're not just working for free for the big guys. Kiram, I'm interested to hear from you on this one.
So we're talking about adoption. And we're talking about
relatives to behaviors that have been
because of the pandemic, right? Well, we ran a show terrestrially that had 600 to 800 attendees every year, trying to who somehow found their way to a VR conference, and not like an exhibition theme park VR conference, but like deep dive, everything from psychonauts to blockchain to privacy and ethics, and like some pretty hardcore discussions at the early days. And then we needed to figure out, and we also had to convince people to come to Toronto. Now, I started VRTO in Toronto, not LA, because I figured Canada would be an easier place for more countries to get into. And so we did foster early on an international audience. We would have attendees from China, from India, from South America, from the Emirates. And that was like really important to demonstrating that there are many ideas going on in many different ecosystems that are totally different than what you think about this, and are being used in totally different ways than you think. And going online was like the most perfect extension of being able to allow international guests to continue to participate, but also extended it. More importantly, it also allowed people who have accessibility concerns to be able to attend. And going backwards now, I think, would be a huge mistake. I think you've sort of created a framework for accessibility to allow more people to participate. As far as how our show works, we really try to dissolve that notion between stage and audience. There's already a wonderful company in LA called No Proscenium, and I deeply respect them. But this is precisely what I mean, is like dissolve that boundary between talking heads and push content and like full engagement, which is possible with WebXR. So we try to create context and scenarios where that audience is up on its feet and creating really the show. So this year, we had a daily talk show hosted by Max Noir and Mozilla Hubs, where she's broadcasting from a pirate location. via pirate satellite, and we would bring people from the audience to talk about whatever they're working on, or we would have them do live theater for us. We called them the VRTO players, and they learned on camera in front of a live audience and fell on their face in front of a live audience, and then by the final day they presented something. Also, like the idea of constantly changing the mental postcard that you have is a way to create like complex memories of an event that will, I think, increase retention substantially, versus having these like Zoom walls where you just have this singular thing burned in your retina that you just want to get away from as much as possible. One of the things that we do in a conference perspective is, instead of it being live, we typically pre-tape talks, and that way we can respectfully ensure that nobody has to deal with all the glitches. But we also did this really wonderful meta experiment where VRTO attendees had to create a machinima of the show, and they actually put on remote face AI avatars inside of a Zoom wall, which was having a battle with the avatars in the 3D world and talking about who had it right. It was so meta, I fell out of my chair.
That's amazing.
All of those things talk about something else that's really going on underneath and the sort of mycelium of underground of the WebXR, which is how the true core developers who've been here for a long time, what they really want is to be able to nest one WebXR reality inside of another, just like Russian dolls. So I can use WebXR or, Webaverse inside of CryptoVoxels, inside of something else. And that plays to what you're saying, Dulce, like how important it is to have sovereignty and to not be controlled essentially by the framework, but the other way around, and have true open expressivity and that ability to modulate and adapt. If we don't empower the independents to do these things, we won't have progress. We will lose.
Right.
Totally. I think that there's like something, we don't have a ton of time, but I wanted to touch on this that we're kind of getting into, which is virtual economies at scale. And then like just this sort of virtual land. And now that we're having this, I hear what people are saying on this play to earn stuff, and my like ethics ears like go like, ooh, kind of like you, Kiram, I'm sure, where I'm like, oh no, are we gonna have another era of the 90s where like the SWAT team's busting in like mom's basements and it's like, get on the ground, kid, because like some kid's worth trillions of dollars in some weird game world. You know what I mean? Like these are the types of things I think about where we're abstracting a lot of tangible and physical value. But kind of like away from regulators and into this like world within a world within a world. And for some people that can become their whole world. And there's really cool things that could happen, right? Like, when you think of the future of virtual work and time zones being a virtual economy versus the landmass, right? Like, can we all work together functionally versus where are you, right? So there's these kind of things that are happening, but there's models that scare me that we've talked about here at the conference, and I'd like to just touch on if we can, which is what happens when we start paying everybody to sit around and diddle things, and what happens when we are paying, when we're creating scarcity around virtual land and not paying attention to the sort of physical land it represents.
Well, can I step in first? So ethics are very important, obviously, but like I was mentioning with Apple doing the lifestyle play, all of that is to get people up and out and moving. And when we start tying virtual spaces to real spaces, our idea of the virtual space is going to shift. And we're going to now see it as exactly what it should be, a layer over real space. We're not there yet at all. So to think of us as just sitting behind a keyboard, diddling around and making virtual goods, that's not where it's going to be at all. We're going to be quantifying so much about our lives and about our own bodies, right? And how our bodies move in the world. Like, for instance, some people love looking at like pictures of celebrities, right? So now imagine if you're just like scrolling through pictures of celebrities, and every time you stop and stare at somebody for a period of time, that is a monetization hit to you or to whoever. Like there's some kind of like like transaction that happens there, and that's all based on your gaze. Or if you touch something out in the real space and it recognizes that you've touched it in the real space, all those kind of IoT connections and layering virtual interactions onto the real, I think that's all. That's the future, and that's where it's going. And quantifying every kind of touch point across this system, that's the future. And it will involve people moving and getting out and moving their bodies. So
Yeah,
Can I just add one quick thing to that?
For sure.
I just want to talk about like self-aware media, and that the media is in itself encapsulated, right?
Yeah.
So you can have an NFT, but that can always be extended. It starts off as a JPEG, but over time you can append to that. And so
Yep.
all media will eventually become self-aware, and that way it can be re-aggregated through all sorts of different filters and so on. It won't just be dumb media, is my point.
Speaking of ethics,
Amen.
thank you so much, guys. Your conversation is a great segue into our next presentation panel. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining Samantha today on this presentation.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Awesome.